Chris, I'd love to know the reality of whether there's some supraphysical existence, a God or cosmic consciousness or something. And so I ask my friends what they think. I trust them. Some of my friends say there's only science and only a naturalistic world. Others believe in God, believe in specific religions, Judaism, Christianity, Buddhism, some Hindus. And here's the interesting point. Most of my friends are academic or intellectual. Most of them have PhDs. Maybe that's a small subset of reality. But there's no way to distinguish between those two radically different views in terms of their background, their culture, their education, only on whether they believe in a non-physical reality, some or others absolutely not. So one of the conclusions that I might come to is that the universe itself is ambiguous. Is the universe religiously ambiguous?
Let me start by saying the fact you've got a PhD doesn't particularly qualify you to be an expert in this subject. What does it mean to say is the universe ambiguous? We're getting now into a realm of questions that actually are meaningless. I'll ask you, what do you really mean by that question? I want a proper scientific answer before I can possibly address it, see?
All right, then I'll just give you my empirical observation that there are two groups of people that cannot be distinguished in any way, very high educational level, if that's relevant or not, may not be relevant, cannot be distinguished in any way other than one group believes there is only science, a naturalistic, materialistic, physicalistic, choose your term world, and anything else is rubbish, and another group that deeply believes in a reality beyond the physical. That's my observation.
Yeah,
I'm not
true.
Okay, that's true. You have friends on both sides of
Oh,
it,
yes,
right?
very much so.
So they're both looking at the same universe, and the reason why the fact that they have PhDs and they're physicists and scientists is relevant is because they really understand the physical universe, or think they do, and they're coming to opposite conclusions.
You know, there's a philosophical line called the underdetermination of theory by data. No, I mean, this is serious. When I was a PhD student, there were actually at that time two quite different theories attempting to describe exactly the same data about elementary particles and so on. Now, they were quite different, see? So the data did not determine which one or the other one.
Right.
Now, in that particular case, the evolution of more experiments and so on made one the primary paradigm. But what you're really saying is that given the data of the universe, there are in fact two different theories. It's underdetermined. Yeah, I think that's true. That's all one can say. Your purely scientist group of friends, as far as I can see, could be perfectly correct. I also believe that the religious people could be correct in the sense they have a coherent set of beliefs. I mean, some religious beliefs are nonsense. They don't make any sense. But if you try and eliminate nonsense statements, and I think that's also a coherent theory of the universe, I actually think that's all you can say. Maybe as the human race evolves, that's like we do more experiments, at some point we will get data of some form, experiences of some form that help us to see one is correct rather than the other.
Okay, I mean, this to me is some kind of progress. We admit that there are these two, and both have coherent views.
Yes.
We don't know
anyway.
if one or the other has a so-called correspondence, truth
That's right.
to real reality, whatever that means. And you're saying, though, that maybe in the future there'll be some data that will adjudicate between the two. But wouldn't that prejudice toward one side rather than the other? Because if you deal with data and scientific data, doesn't that put the people on the religious side or the non-physical side generally can't have data to support that?
Actually, you see, I didn't just say data, I said experiences.
Okay.
The human race, we have data and experiences.
So that's important.
I used to fantasize about this when I was a student. Supposing you do an elementary particle physics experiment, yeah? And when you printed out the results on a sort of plot, it said God exists in English. Let's just suppose that happens, a fantasy thing. What would you say? Boy, wouldn't you be struck? Of course, that's unlikely. But so I think that would convert many people, actually. It sounds nonsense, but I mean, it could be data of some totally unexpected sort.
Okay, I mean, that's actually a good point.
Yeah.
That's a good point. There could be some things like that. So it's not in principle impossible.
No.
In the physical world, for there to be some proof of
That's
something
right.
beyond that. Okay.
As to how you could falsify religious beliefs, I suppose many people do lose their religious beliefs because they experience with suffering. Unfortunately, it's true. Many people simply can't handle the fact that their wife has died of cancer, breast cancer, very young, and she was a Christian. And they say, why did this happen? And it's a reasonable question to ask, isn't it? And some people do lose their religious beliefs, which is understandable in those circumstances. And maybe there'd be so many catastrophes in the human race. In the end, we also, clearly there's not a God. I don't know, it might happen. In other words, we might lose our beliefs without ever actually trying to verify them, we just lose them. As to how you could ever prove a purely scientific thing was wrong, I think you would want something fairly miraculous, like I said, actually. I don't see any ordinary events going to do it.
Right. But so let's take where we are now. The fact that we have this, what I'm calling religious ambiguity, you may call it just a point beyond which we can say anything. But does that say something about the nature of reality? I mean, does it say something that there's this uncertainty about what goes beyond that?
What it says about the nature of our human understanding of reality is a very different thing. We should never forget that it's we humans who invent theories of physics. It's we humans who are religious. It's not the natural world in itself. So I think what you can truly say, as I've said already, is that our experience of reality does not determine completely the theories that you can talk about the world. And that's simply how it is. I mean, 2,000 years ago, they didn't have transistors and things, and that was simply how it was. That's all one can say, I think.